Good morning, children. Good morning, and today we will begin the class from where we left out from the last class. Now we are on page 90. Kindly take your books to page 90, and we are going to start from human capital and human development. Now, this is an important term and a topic to be understood because a lot of questions come regarding the differences and the similarities between the human capital and human development. So we must get our things very clear in mind what they are and how do they differ. So if you look at the page number 90, human capital and human development. The two terms sound similar, but there is a clear distinction between them. Human capital considers education and health as a means to increase labor productivity. Human development is based on the idea that education and health are integral to the human well-being because only when people have the ability to read and write and the ability to lead a long and a healthy life, they will be able to make other choices which they value. Now get this point very clear, children. Human capital considers education and health as a means, एक साधन, for what? To increase labor productivity, to increase the productivity in labor. What is required? Education and health. But human development says, okay, the idea of education is there, very important. Health also very important. But they are integral to developing the human well-being. The entire human development is the main focus. So you see the focus differs. Human capital, we need education and health. What is my focus in our capital? Simply to increase what? Labor productivity. Human development. Human development says yes, education is important, health is important, but my focus is not increasing labor productivity. Then what is my focus? My focus is to increase or to develop the human beings. My focus is the humans. I am developing human beings, not increasing labor productivity. Though they may sound very similar because both are using the same techniques. Here also education and health is used for increasing labor productivity. Here also human development, for the human to develop. What do we need? We as human beings, we need education, we need good health. But the focus is different. Here we are not focusing in development for increasing productivity. Automatically production will increase. But in development, what is the main focus? Developing the human beings. So he says human development is based on the idea that education and health are integral to the human well-being because only when people have the ability to read and write and the ability to lead a long and a healthy life, they will be able to make other choices which they value. So human capital treats the human beings as a means to an end, एक साधन, whereas the end being the increase in productivity. And in this view, any investment in education and health is unproductive. It does not enhance the output of goods and services. But in a human development perspective, the human beings are the ends in themselves, and human welfare should be increased through investments in education and health. even if such investments do not result in higher labor productivity. So like I told you, the focus of both is the difference. Human capital focus, they use humans as a means to the end. What is their means to the end? What is their end? Productivity should increase. क्योंकि हमें productivity increase करनी है, तो what will I do? Education दे दो और health दे दो. क्यों दो? Because I want high productivity from the labor. I'm using them as labor. But human development says, okay, develop a human being. What develops the human being? You and I? Education? Yes. Health? Yes. When I have a good education, when I have good health, I can focus and choose many other options after that. And human development's focus is develop the human being. Develop his welfare. When you develop the human being and the welfare, automatically productivity may increase, may not increase. That is not my focus. My focus in development is to develop the human being. So you understood? There is a very fine margin of difference. One uses human beings as a means to their end, and their means to the end is increase in productivity in the labor. That is human capital. But human development, their focus is not to use the human beings as an end, but the human beings themselves. They are the most important priority for them. Develop the human beings. Because when you develop the human beings, then automatically everything falls in line. And our main focus is they may increase, they may not increase, but at least they are developed as good human beings, having a good human welfare. So he says, therefore, basic education and basic health are important in themselves, irrespective of their contribution to labor productivity. In such a view, every individual has the right to get basic education and basic health care. That is, every individual has the right to be literate and lead a healthy life. So this is the main aim of human development. Every human being has a right to get basic education and to get basic health care. उनका हक है. It is their right, because here the focus is on developing the human beings, developing their welfare. But on the other hand, human capital only uses the human beings to increase their productivity of labor by giving them education, and that is the difference. I hope I have brought it down and made you understand the difference. Yes? Okay. State of human capital formation in India. In this section, we are going to analyze human capital formation in India. We have already learned that human capital formation is the outcome of investments in education, health, on-the-job training, migration, and information. Of these, education and health are very important sources of human capital formation. We know that ours is a federal country with a union government, state governments, and local governments. Municipal corporations, municipalities, and village panchayats. The Constitution of India mentions the functions to be carried out by each level of the government. Accordingly, expenditure or expenditures on both education and health are to be carried out simultaneously by all the three tiers of the government. Analysis of the health sector is taken up in chapter 8, hence we will discuss only the education sector here. Do you know who takes care of education and health in India? Before we take up the analysis of the education sector in India, we will look into the need for government intervention in education and health sectors. We do understand that education and health care services create both private and social benefits, and this is the reason for the existence of both private and public institutions in the education as well as in the health service markets. Now, expenditures on education and health make substantial long-term impact, and they cannot be easily reversed. Hence, the government intervention is essential. For instance, once a child is admitted to a school or a healthcare center where the required services are not provided, before the decision is taken to shift the child to another institution, substantial amount of damage would have been done. So, moreover, individual consumers of these services do not have complete information about the quality of services and their cost. In this situation, the providers of education and health services acquire monopoly power and are involved in exploitation. So the role of the government in this situation is to ensure that the private providers of these services adhere means follow the standards stipulated given by the government, and they charge the correct price. So children, in India, you and I are aware that there are private institutions in schools and healthcare services, hospitals. So there is private and there is public, which is the government. Okay, and who's in charge of supervising the activities of these two? It is the government. Now, the government keeps a check on the private as well as the government on themselves to see that a certain standard is maintained, to see that there is no overcharging taking place in the private sectors. Things are going or running around or going about smoothly. So it is the role of the government in such situations to ensure that all these services provided by the private sectors, they follow certain standards which have been given by the government, and they are also charging the correct prices. Now in India, the ministries of education at the union and state level departments of education and various organizations like National Council of Educational Research and Training, that is the NCERT, the University Grants Commission, that is the UGC, and the All India Council of Technical Education, that is AICTE. They facilitate institutions which come under the education sector. Similarly, the ministries of health at the union and the state level, departments of health, and various organizations like the Indian Council for Medical Research, ICMR, they facilitate the institutions which come under the health sector. In a developing country like ours, with a large section of the population living below the poverty line, many of us cannot afford to access basic education and health care facilities. Moreover, a substantial section of our people cannot afford to reach super specialty health care and higher education. Furthermore, when basic education and health care is considered as a right of the citizens, then it is essential that the government should provide education and health services free of cost for the deserving citizens and those from the socially oppressed classes. Both the union and the state governments have been stepping up expenditures in the education sector over the years in order to fulfill the objective of attaining 100% literacy and considerably increase the average educational attainment of Indians. So in the Indian sector, in the Indian setup, there are both private as well as public sectors operating in the educational as well as in the health care facilities, and the government's role is to monitor and see that things are going about in a proper way. Now, education sector in India. The growth in the government expenditure on education. Do you know how much of the government spends on education? This expenditure by the government is expressed in two ways. First, as a percentage of the total government expenditure, and second, as a percentage of the gross domestic product. The percentage of education expenditure of total government expenditure indicates the importance of education in the scheme of things before the government. The percentage of education expenditure of the GDP expresses how much of our income is being committed to the development of education in the country. During 1952 to 2014, the education expenditure as a percentage of the total government expenditure increased from 7.92 to 15.7, and as a percentage of the GDP, it increased from 0.64 to 4.3%. Throughout this period, the increase in education expenditure has not been uniform, and there has been irregular rise and a fall. To this, if we include the private expenditure incurred by individuals and by the philanthropic institutions, the total education expenditure should be much higher. Elementary education takes a major share of the total education expenditure, and the share of the higher tertiary education institutions of higher learning like colleges, polytechnics, and universities is the least. Though, on an average, the government spends less on tertiary education, expenditure per student in the tertiary education is higher than that of the elementary. This does not mean that financial resources should be transferred from the tertiary education to the elementary education. As we expand school education, we need more teachers who are trained in the higher educational institutions. Therefore, expenditures on all levels of education should be increased. In 2014 and 15, the per capita public expenditure on elementary education differs considerably across the states, from as high as rupees 34,651 in the Himachal Pradesh to as low as rupees 4,088 in Bihar. This leads to differences in educational opportunities and attainments across the state. So health and education is also a state matter. It also depends on the state, how much they invest in their education, and a figure has been given over here as per the 2014-15 census, where Himachal spent something like 34,651, whereas in Bihar it is near 4,088. So if you can see, the input is less, so output also would be accordingly depending on the inputs put in. So one can understand the inadequacy of the expenditure on education if we compare it with the desired level of education expenditure as recommended by the various commissions. About 50 years ago, the Education Commission of 1964-66 had recommended that at least 6% of the GDP be spent on education so as to make a noticeable rate of growth in educational achievements. The Tapas Majumdar Committee, appointed by the Government of India in 1998, estimated an expenditure of around 1.37 lakh crores, and over 10 years in 1998-99 to 2006-7 to bring all Indian children in the age group of 6 to 14 years under the purview of the school education. Under the purview means under the base heading of school education. Compared to this desired level, excuse me, of education expenditure of around 6% of GDP, the current level of a little over 4% has been quite inadequate. Inadequate means not sufficient. In principle, a goal of 6% needs to be reached. This has been accepted as a must for the coming years. In 2009, the Government of India enacted the Right of Education Act to make free education a fundamental right of all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years. So in the government schools from 6 to 14 years, education is given as free because it is a fundamental right of every children in the age group of 6 to 14 to get free education. The government of India has also started levying a 2% education cess on all union taxes. So if you are aware, you look at your electricity bill. You get electricity bill at home. You look at that bill, you will find education cess 2%. A cess is charged and that money goes towards the education. The revenues from education cess has been earmarked for spending on elementary education, and in addition to this, the government sanctions a large outlay for the promotion of higher education and new loan schemes for students to pursue higher education. Those who wish to go for higher education, the government provides them loans at proper lower rates of lending them money for higher education. Educational achievements in India. Generally, educational achievements in a country are indicated in terms of adult literacy level, primary education completion rate, and the youth literacy rate. These statistics for the last 2 decades are given in your table 5.2. Okay, so we will stop till here and continue from here in the next class, which is tomorrow. Okay, till then, all of you do have a nice day and stay.